Hi, and welcome to the Switch Show. Welcome or welcome back, depending on when you're listening to this and what time you're listening. Hi, good evening, good morning. What's going on? I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're feeling alright. Alright, today we're talking about childhood, and I have a picture to paint for you. Pardon me, just trying to get a couple of things sorted. Yeah, we're good. So I have a picture to paint for you. I don't know why I was using an accent. I have a picture to paint for you. I've said that thrice already. Now, think about this. When did you take your first steps? I want you to close your eyes. Well, except you're driving or you're handling sharp objects, then please don't close your eyes. You can just, use your mind's eye. Do this exercise with me for a little bit. I want you to think about your first steps. Try. Try remembering your first steps. Today you actually took your first steps. And then do me one better. Close your eyes and picture the moment you took your first word. You could even compound on that and say your first sentence when you put a couple words together to make sense. Your first sentence. Have you got that? Okay. Let's think of something more celebratorial. Your first birthday, when you turned one. Think about it. I want you to think long and hard. I'm not talking about the pictures you were shown as you grew older. I'm talking about the day. Remember the day. Remember how you felt. Remember what was going on. Remember the people that were there. You know what? First birthday might be a bit of a stretch. Let's bring it up. Let's say your third, maybe even fourth birthday. Try very hard. Remember in details, just like you remember the meal you had yesterday. Remember. Have you got it? No? You you don't you What do you mean you don't remember? You don't remember? Are you for real? You don't. Huh. That means that there is a stretch of my own existence that's just gone. And yet it is that part of our lives that builds the fundamentals of who we are today. It is that part of our life that built us today. And today we're talking about childhood. If you were in the previous episodes, I said I was going to call this the Hood series. Granted, one episode does not end, like one of the words doesn't end in hood because it's adolescence. I didn't want to write teenage hood. That's a little too on the nose and maybe even cringe. So adolescent. But yeah, this is the hood series, and we're going to do a steady progression of our lives as human beings, starting from our most fundamental point, our most vulnerable, and our most open point. That is childhood. And I have some notes written down. Today isn't one of my spitballing episodes where I'm all expository and stuff because I want to and to at least attempt to follow whatever note I have written down, whatever script is before me, right? So this is the starting point. The idea of childhood as a protected, distinct stage of life separate from adulthood, right? So I'll read to you what is here. There's a historian, Philip Aries. I don't think it's pronounced Aries because the E has an accent on it, so it's Arias. most likely. Who made this famous argument back in 1960 in a book called Centuries of Childhood. His claim was that in medieval Europe, once a kid could survive without constant physical care, so around the his argument was usually around the age of 7, they were basically treated as small adults. Same clothes, same work, no separate kid culture, no toys designed for them. Now, since then, of course, that claim has been challenged. Later historians found evidence of real parental affection and childhood specific practices earlier than Aries claimed. So it's not that nobody loved their kids or noticed they were different, but the structural idea of childhood as an institution with its own space, products, and protections, it is newer than we think. And there are two big forces that are behind it. One is the Industrial Revolution. So obviously children were working in factories, and when there was backlash, there were backlash against it. Child labor laws went into full swing, and it pulled kids out of the workforce and put them somewhere else. And then the somewhere else is number two, school. Education became compulsory. Compulsory education didn't just teach kids to read, it invented the age graded peer group. So you had to be boxed in with a certain age, basically your peers, right? Basically, peer group for age. I want to say demarcation. Demarcation is not the word, but you were. It's pretty explanatory. You were demarcated. You were apportioned to a certain peer group based on your age or an age range, and before that kids weren't sorted by birth year into rooms with only 7. That's a very modern structure. The idea that, and sometimes I like to use movies as examples. When I see these historical movies, you see a lot of kids playing, and they can be of differing ages, but because they live in and around each other, they just hang out with themselves. But if they were to go to school, you know they'll be separated into classrooms, because one class, if you're older, you're supposed to be in a higher class. If you're younger, you be in a lower class. All right. And then we move on forward to later on. So as kids began to you know see the world differently, there were multiple things that started coming up. And one of those things, and I think I've talked about this before in a previous episode, is attachment styles, right? Is attachment styles. Because one of the things about the child brain is that as a child, your brain is at its most malleable. So many of the things that you learn, or sometimes even continue in adulthood, you begin as a child. And some people talk about, oh yeah, when you grow up, you can, grow out of certain things. And yeah, don't get me wrong, yeah, that's true. And that is the reason why it's important what you hold on to as a child is more than what you are taught or exposed to as a child. Whilst you might grow out of, let's say, the peripheral things, there are things that have latched onto your subconscious that have been there from childhood and carry on for the rest of your life. Um, Permit me to slip this in here. Such is the case of, trigger warning, we're going to be delving into something a bit more sensitive that has to do with conversations around harassment and everything. If this is uncomfortable for you, please skip along. All right. So such is the case with something like abuse. You see or have heard stories of people who were abused as children, and then somewhere in them that memory is locked up because of how traumatic and devastating that part of their life was as a child. That memory is locked up, and you're wondering, how is it that everybody talks about this, and then if somebody was to ask you, you say, oh, I don't know, I don't remember. Is it that you don't remember, or you're choosing not to? Because the brain will always protect itself. If something is going to induce stress to the brain and to every other part of the body, your mind, your brain will most likely lock it up and throw the key into the lagoon, you know. And so in such an instance, although this instance is a very drastic one, it's a very crazy one. In such an instance, we we never really let go or grow out of it. And sometimes in this idea of, whether you grow outgrow certain things, let's even say religion, for example. Some people are raised Christian, Muslim, or whatever religion you subscribe to, and as they grow older, they say, oh, they found the truth, and organized religion is a sham, it's a scam, it's just a way to keep people in a constant vicious cycle or loop. It's a way through which the puppet masters control the masses and whatnot. Yeah, yeah. Have you? Maybe they are as conspiratorial as that, or you're just like, nah, it's just stupidity. It's organized religion is just stupid. Fine. One of the things that you may not tell yourself is that the biases you had when you were defending the religion you were part of, or defending organized religion, that bias doesn't go away, because that bias has been there since when you were a child. And as you grew older, you hardened it. It was formed when you were a child. And then, they say that wine, when you want to, I don't know how the saying goes, but wine gets better with age, is what I'm trying to say. Wine gets better with age. The finest of wines, you hear this is a 35-year-old whiskey, and you're wondering, why am I drinking? Why am I drinking whiskey this old? I don't take alcohol. I don't know what's the thrill or enthrall is about when people are embellishing, displaying their ancient or aged wine and spirits and whatnot. But yeah, it gets better with age. Or in this case, in the case of things you'd much rather do away with, it gets worse with age. So it forms and is shaped in childhood, and by the time you're an adult, it becomes concrete, it becomes solid. And so, no matter what group you find yourself in, those biases will find a way to rear their ugly heads until you address it. Sometimes we don't even know, right? We don't even know. But yeah, let's look at a couple scientific things. Attachment. There's a British psychologist, John Bowlby, and later Mary Ainsworth, who built what's regarded today as the attachment theory. Ainsworth ran this famous experiment called the strange situation. A parent leaves a room, a stranger enters, the parent comes back. How the child reacts tells you their attachment style. Boils down to the three basic ones: secure, anxious, avoidant. The claim that gets thrown around a lot, sometimes oversimplified on social media, is that these early attachment patterns with caregivers become the template for adult relationships. How you were held or weren't as an infant shows up in how you handle intimacy at 30. Question for you: is it true? I mean, there's a test for attachment styles now. I mean, you can take the test. It's maybe 15 minutes at most. I don't think it's up to that, but yeah, take an attachment style test and answer truthfully and honestly, and maybe or maybe not, It could be that something that happened or did not happen in your childhood is the reason for your attachment style. And you learn a lot about yourself, I guarantee. I learned a lot about myself when I took it. I'm not going to tell you what my attachment style was. I learned a lot, and there's been a lot I've worked on since that time. Then there's cognitive development. Jean Piaget's stages. There's sensory motor, there's pre operational, concrete operational, formal operational. There is, okay, this is object permanence. Tiny babies genuinely don't understand that something still exists once it's hidden from view. That's why Peekaboo works so well as entertainment for an 8-month old. It's not a game to them, it's basically magic. And conversation. If you pour the same amount of water from a short, fat glass into a tall, skinny one, a 5-year-old will swear there's more water now. No, not I didn't. I was supposed to say conservation, not conversation earlier. Anyway, not because they can't count. It's because their brain genuinely hasn't developed the logic to separate looks like more from is more yet. Hmm. I wish I could make this out into like a doc and put it somewhere for you for your. I mean, I technically can. I technically can. But yeah, I think I can. I can just make this into a doc that you can download and read on your own time. Granted, this was written. It wasn't written by me. I'm not going to. That's what I use. I use AI. AI is such a touchy subject, but yes, I use AI for research like this. Right. So yeah. And then there is Erickson. Erickson adds the social emotional layer. Right. He says trust versus mistrust in infancy, autonomy versus shame in toddlerhood, initiative versus guilt in preschool years, industry versus inferiority once they hit school age. Each stage is basically a psychological task the child has to resolve, and all unresolved ones, he argued, don't just disappear, they follow you. And then play. Vygotsky's argument was that pretend play isn't just kids being cute. It's literally where a child first practices abstract thinking, self regulation, negotiation, social rules. A kid playing store is doing cognitive rehearsal for adult life. Hmm. Think about it. All those tea parties and everything that children do. It's rehearsal, and we just honestly prior to this, all of that is just silly child's play to me. I mean, it's just kids being kids, you know, kids being kids. But here's something almost nobody thinks about. You cannot remember your own early childhood. You can't. And that is something that is widely regarded or seen as childhood amnesia. Most adults' earliest memory starts somewhere between age 3 and 4. Hell, if I remember, if I remember age 3 and 4, maybe I can tell you about some bits and pieces of things that happened or might have not happened. And sometimes like in the middle of telling the story, now I'm like, oh yeah, this happened when I was 2. In my mind, I'm thinking, did this really happen when I was 2? My memory is severely skewed, but I can tell the story well enough that they believe that I remember what happened when I was 2. And I'm not lying or trying to lie. Obviously not. It's just that I would think that I can remember, but I don't think I do. Yeah. Most adults' earliest memory starts somewhere between ages 3 and 4. Everything before that is essentially blank. Remember exercise from the beginning. hmm There are competing theories as to why the hippocampus, the part of the brain that files memories away, isn't fully developed yet. Some researchers point to language. You can't really encode a memory in the way adults do until you have language to structure it with. Others think it's about identity. The early memories feel like they happen to a different self than the one narrating your life now. And even the memories you do have from childhood, they're not stored like a video file you replay. Memory researcher Elizabeth Loftus has spent a career showing that memories are reconstructed every time you access them, which means, and I just touched on this right now, which means they can be edited, merged with other memories, even partially invented without you knowing it happened. This takes me to this series, The Blacklist. I don't know if I should say this for people that might want to watch The Blacklist. It's most likely a spoiler. Anyway, I'm not going to give out the names. So something happens. One of the characters, she has a memory blocked. There was something that happens from her childhood, and she can't quite remember. It is because that memory was blocked by somebody. Not just blocked, but it was altered. So the way she remembers the events of that night, of that very crucial night of her childhood, isn't what actually happened. Like, she has gone through so many different narratives of that same night, and each time she goes through one narrative, it always seems like she's further away from the truth. And that's because all those things happened when she was a child. Now if she was an adult, obviously things would have been different, and whatnot. But as a child, just like this suggests, or Elizabeth Loftus was arguing, or has spent her entire career arguing and showing, is that our memories as children can often be altered. Yeah. So layer that with something else. Rosy retrospection, the tendency to remember childhood summers as endless and golden, even if objectively plenty of that was boring or lonely or hard. Some of that's a coping mechanism. Some of it is that nostalgia sells. A huge amount of advertising is built entirely around selling you back a version of childhood that never quite existed. So I have a question for you. What is your earliest memory of your childhood? What is your earliest anything? Your earliest memory, basically. And if you sit down with it, do you actually believe, or do you actually trust? Do you trust that that memory you have is not something that you fabricated? Do you trust it? Do you trust it? So like I said, this script is quite long, and I don't want to. I like to get expository sometimes, and I'll give you a reason why this topic is important to me, right? As I cap off this conversation, I had this thought the other day. I was going through my mind as to why kids act a certain way towards their parents, and I'm going to most likely and hopefully shed more light on this in the episode on adolescence. And I see that there is a progression of how children see their parents. Sure, we can talk about attachment styles, we can talk about love languages, we can talk about all the things. We can talk about memory and recollection and everything. That's cute and all. If you cast your mind back to some of the things I said a couple minutes ago, albeit all over the place, I said something along the lines of, there are things you might grow out of, but your subconscious doesn't really let go of it, right? Now, speaking on this, I've been trying to say, or what I'm trying to say is, there's a way kids see their parents, and it's something that shapes how they become parents later in life, and it's something that follows the popular saying that we eventually even though it may not be consciously, subconsciously end up like our parents. Yeah. So you might complain, oh, my dad is hard, my mom is hard, they're quite strict and everything. But there's a tendency to end up like our parents. I mean, I think it's, if I remember correctly, the girl is most likely to end up like her mom, and the boy is most likely to end up like his dad. Except you make a conscious decision and you actually watch yourself. Like if you don't have quite the model parents, or they have discrepancies that you did not like, or things that you saw and you wish they had done better, you're most likely to repeat those things if you don't see it. But that's one thing. So what I'm trying to get at is that children see their parents in four stages. The first stage is they deify their parents. It's the deification, right? That is when to them their parents are God. Now I would use myself, because I'm obviously not going to use any other person as an example. There was a point in my life, obviously, where my dad was basically on par with God. I mean, yes, I'm religious, and I I'm a Christian, and I know that God is God, essentially the creator of the universe and everything. But there was a point in my life where I was convinced that God was moving in my dad, like my dad was. He had so much power. I admired him so much. Like there was so much admiration, was bordering on reverence, worship even. And then as I grew older, the second stage rolled in, and that is humanizing. When a child sees their parents, oh, my dad can never lie, my dad can never do any wrong, my mom can never lie, my mom can never do any wrong. As they keep on growing and they get exposed to the world and they see, oh wait, this man is most likely old enough to be my father and he's a bloody liar. Does that mean my dad can lie? Does it mean that my dad can do wrong and bad things, can also make bad choices too? And that is when the humanizing starts. You start to see them like, oh, wait, you're just like me. You make silly, you can make silly choices, you can make mistakes. Oh, you've made mistakes before. Huh. Oh, you've also failed? Really? And it doesn't take long. Okay, are we back? Okay. Apologies. Apologies for the interruption. Pardon the interruption. So yeah, I was saying uh, that this is a hypothesis, right? So whatever it is that you decide, whatever it is your conclusion is from this matter, hey, be my guest, right? Be my guest. So they pretty much see that their parents are like them, and villainizing, or going from humanizing to villainizing, is feeling like they lied to you, or feeling of, it's more or less a feeling of disappointment. Like, I thought you guys were perfect, but you don't have it all figured out. You're just like me, and I don't have it all figured out. And it's something that parents do to, I don't know, I'm not a parent, so I can only speak to as much as I've observed. But I think this thing parents do, where they present themselves as near perfect human beings, is a way to keep their grip on their child. I want to say that's a weird way to put it, but a way to essentially make sure that their child doesn't fall out of line. I think that's a better way, but not the best way. That's a better way to put it. And another thing is a fear that, oh, if I become vulnerable, they'll most likely not respect me, or accord me the respect that I deserve, that type of thing. But that's not always the case. And then from then the transition or progress into the fourth one. And the fourth one is in two parts. Is either you understand and reconcile, or you, I've forgotten how I put it now. I think you despise, you actually don't see eye to eye because they are not willing to admit to it. You're not willing to see them or meet them where they're at. And now, of course, there's disparity and everybody goes their separate ways. And that's the reason why you have parents fighting with their children. No, I haven't talked to my son in 3 years. Why? Is he dead? Is he unreachable? Is it like he's incarcerated or something? Oh no, he's alive, he's well, but I've just not talked to him. That's silly. That is silly if you ask me. So yeah, I don't know there's much I can say right now because this will naturally flow into the next episode and there's a lot more to say. But I'm gonna keep it a buck and I hope I've keep it, I say keep it. I hope I have kept it a buck and this is where I end today's episode. I'll see you on the next one. Flip the switch and illuminate.